had some trouble this morning, but I appreciate everyone joining us today. As Ray mentioned, my name is Kelly McDonald. I'm the Director of Social Media Engagement over at The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. I am a twice graduate of Ohio State, and in my undergrad years, many years ago, we won't talk about how many, I was also in OUAB. So I always am happy to be able to come back and present and chat with folks through OUAB. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about thought leadership, what it is, why it's different than necessarily being quote unquote an influencer, and what the benefits are for both you and your current or future employer to have a thought leadership presence. I will do my best to try and monitor the chat, but also feel free to just interrupt me or raise your hand or any of those things if you have questions as we go along. And I'm hopeful that we'll have time at the end too as well. So first, just here quickly, what is thought leadership? So use the hand raise option in Zoom if you have ever made a purchase because of an influencer. I'll raise my hand. I absolutely have done that. If you have ever went to a blogger's or social media account to find information on a trending topic. If you have seen social media influencers share information that was incorrect or not backed by fact. I will absolutely raise my hand for that one, especially during peak COVID time. We saw a lot of that on our side. Or have unfollowed a social media influencer because their account strayed from its original purpose or goal. So maybe you followed an influencer for one thing and you started noticing that they were really not sticking to kind of their brand or what values they had when you first began following them. Awesome. So it seems like we all have a lot of experience with a lot of these different sort of influencer-based types of thought leadership. So we'll talk a bit about that today, what that means and why kind of thought leadership can really distinguish itself from being an influencer because of a lot of these factors in particular. So when it comes to what thought leadership is, a lot of people out there put themselves out as a thought leader and they may self-identify that way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are actually truly acting as a thought leader online. A thought leader truly is recognized as an authority in a specific field, and that person often is sought after or rewarded by others because they are an expert. This can be someone who is a historical figure, someone that has worldly impact, someone who is a subject matter expert, and it is often really someone who can make that impact by influencing a narrative, by understanding what needs to be done. So really it comes down to the expertise that this person has, and do they have the power to really move a conversation in one way or another. Now that doesn't mean that you have to, be someone with a gazillion followers or someone who even has years and years of experience in an area, but it does mean that you are an expert around that subject matter specifically, and you can do that in a variety of ways. So when we think about a thought leader, they are definitely authentic, and that is also part of what makes them so trustworthy. So I'm sure, we've all followed people before on social media who maybe don't come off as being super authentic, and that can make it harder to really believe what they're saying and feel motivated to take, a call to action that they're making, or to really start following them in a way that maybe is guiding you to learn more. They are also, as I mentioned, an expert in the topic, and they understand their audience. So they know who they're talking to and how to talk to them. They understand their business or industry, and they are immersed in the field. So again, you don't necessarily need to have had X amount of years, 30 plus years in the industry or in the field, but you do need to have a strong understanding of it and be fully immersed in it on your day-to-day. So people want to make sure that, again, that plays back into that authenticity, and that you are using that knowledge and that being immersed in the field in order to come off as being authentic. A thought leader is not someone who just has a lot of Twitter or Instagram followers. And yes, we should be calling it X, but I'm just sort of doing my own stand of refusing to call it that. So when we reference Twitter today, we can talk Twitter/X. So social media really has made it easy for people who have amassed a large following to think that they are thought leaders, but many of them don't actually have the expertise to back it up. So again, just from my perspective and the healthcare side, this was something that we saw a lot with COVID. People just kind of putting information out there because they had a large following and were getting a lot of traction, but don't necessarily have the expertise in the science or medical background to be able to really say this is what is true or not true with any actual like educated opinions. Before you do follow someone on social media for expert advice, it is important to make sure that they actually have experience in the topics that they are discussing, which you can find by Googling. You can learn more by just looking at their old past posts. If they have a website, kind of diving into what type of information they share there, and really just using that research to make sure that you are following thought leaders who actually have expertise in the area. So if you would like to get started with thought leadership on your own side, there are a couple things to do before you actually start thinking about what topics and executing on writing that you want to do from that perspective. So first, it's important to think about where you want to start publishing. Blogs are still a very big piece for the thought leadership game. And social media doesn't necessarily have to be your be all end all, but it's a really important piece of the puzzle. Previously we really talked more about LinkedIn and Twitter/X for thought leadership, but there are people moving into that Instagram and even TikTok space, becoming thought leaders there as well. So think about where you want to start publishing and what your niche is going to be, and that can also help you determine where you want to be active. When you do have social media profiles out there and you're ready to start growing your audience, it's really important to make sure that your profiles are complete and clear, so that people will know, hey, this is the type of thing you're going to be talking about, what you want to really cement yourself as an expert in, and they have a good idea of that when they follow you. And that way you're also making sure you're getting the audience that you are looking for. You can begin growing your audiences on social media if you haven't already by starting to follow other people in the space. Also seeking out what types of trending topics are being talked about on social media around the area that you want to touch on, and making sure that you're kind of crafting a content plan around that, and also engaging with other posts that are out there. So commenting with your thoughts, adding a piece to the conversation can really help getting your username out there and making sure that people are seeing you pop up in an area where there are other experts talking about that topic. It's important to have a clear idea of what you want to talk about to guide you as you really begin. So that's important when you're determining what that niche area is going to be. You don't want to get too kind of in the weeds in terms of like the most tiniest specific niche, because the audience isn't quite as big for something really small like that. But what you do want to find is an area that is small enough in a broader piece. So again, if we're thinking about something like healthcare, you might have an interest in, heart health or cancer, and then a niche within that area. That same thing can go for any other interest or area where you might be an expert. So just finding where that niche is going to be and how you can really separate yourself from others in order to make sure that you can really grow your audience and be that strong voice. It's also important to talk to people who are already doing this work and people that you admire. So read other blogs, talk to any mentors you might have, and reach out to other people in the industry who you might think are doing a good job from your side, and get their advice. And then remember that the larger your network is, the more people your content will reach. You can also seek out speaking opportunities and other networking events. There's lots of those here in Columbus as well as across the Ohio State campus, and even identify industry publications you'd like to be a part of. Just keeping an eye out for opportunities like op-eds and other areas where you might be able to even submit something like a letter to the editor, and just again continue to get your name out there. As you get established, it's important to stick to your area of expertise. You don't want to really stray away from that because you want people to know what to expect by following you. Be as specific as you can, because the more specific you are, the better chance you have of finding that niche. If you have a wide range of topics, it just becomes too hard to stay focused and truly become an expert in that area. If you focus on what you know best, that way it's easiest for you to really be writing consistently. A lot of times people try to sort of shoehorn themselves into a specific topic, and that just doesn't work because it can be really painful to try and write about something that you don't love or have a really good understanding of. Step away from the business agenda if you are thinking about doing this from the professional side of things, and maybe you're working for a company or thinking about working for a company in the future, and you want to kind of speak about your own experience, but also tie your work in for your current company. Knowing your audience, though, is more valuable than your business agenda. So you know what they want and what they need to hear, and this should really be the primary driver of any thought leadership content. You should always be continuing to learn about your industry and the niche you've chosen, as well as any outside factors that might impact that. So as you become more trusted, people will come to you first as a reputable person and source of that information. And when that happens, they're also going to expect you to be on top of things that are changing in the market. It's also important to commit to continual learning. So being a thought leader means that you're going to grow and change as the industry and your niche topic grow and change. Social media is a great example of that. I've been in it for almost 13 years now, and things change in social media every day. So from my perspective, it's really important for me to stay on top of it as much as I can, and make sure that I know what is happening out in the industry space so that I can speak to it as best as possible. And then lastly, listen to and solicit feedback from others. So, if you're getting comments from your followers, if you're talking to your mentor, if you're leaning on colleagues or coworkers or other people that are in your industry and they're giving you feedback, listen to that, take it to heart, know how to implement it, and that will continue to make you a better thought leader. So we'll now walk through some best practices for thought leaders and how you can make sure to implement these to make your content as successful as possible. So there are several different types of thought leadership content. There are a lot of different ways that these can be labeled depending on where you look, but this is kind of a really good base to kind of look at some of these main buckets that you can think about as you position yourself as where you want to go as a thought leader. So the first is the counter-narrative opinion. This means if you have a strongly held opinion that goes against the conventional wisdom of your industry, that means that you are a prime candidate for this type of thought leadership content. Now, again, it's important that this is still accurate information, right? So there's a lot of people out there that may find themselves having a counter-narrative opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that opinion is proven to be correct. So you want to make sure that you have that kind of backing before you kind of go out with that strongly held opinion, so that you can really drive that conversation, but ensure that you're also, being accurate and authentic. The second is personal narrative, which means that you're telling a story about you, things that you've learned, and what brought you to the place that you are today. If you do have a story to tell, this can be super powerful because there's often someone out there that can also identify with what your personal narrative is. And it's also a bit of an easier option because you can tell your own story and you're very familiar with that. So it can make it easier to actually do the writing around that piece. For data storytelling, if you have a project or a product or something that you've specifically worked on that has generated data, or that you have gone out and collected data yourself through some type of survey or other work that you're doing within your area, this is a good way to tell a story using data specifically. So this can be research based, this can be survey based, this can be really anything that has the numbers to help you kind of back the story with that type of information. For industry analysis, it doesn't mean that you need to, just focus all of your content specifically on talking about an industry, but it does mean that you're leaning into trends and developments that are taking place within this space. So the content is still authentically yours, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's isolated from everything else that's happening within the industry. So again, from my perspective, social media is a great place for doing this because there's a lot of discussion happening in the industry about trends. and ways that, you can jump in on certain things. And for me, that's an easy way to kind of put my information and thoughts out there, and weigh into what's happening in the industry. And then lastly, network connections. So the more people that you're connected with, the more other people will want to connect with you, and the more valuable that your thoughts and feelings, and expertise become. And so this is really true across all thought leadership content. So, as we're thinking about the number of followers, it doesn't necessarily mean that we need as many followers as possible. But again, the quality over the quantity is super important here. And if you have other experts and folks who are really well known in the area following you for this type of thing, you're going to just continue to grow those connections. So the first thing you want to make sure you're doing is being consistent as you start to publish thought leadership content. You want to publish regularly on a schedule so that people know what to expect. Maybe you're posting every Thursday about XYZ, and people are coming back to your account every Thursday so that they can make sure they know and see what your most recent update is. It's also important to engage with your followers. You don't want to just start a conversation and leave it. If this is true for both social media and blog content, the more that you engage, the more likely your content is to show up in both Google search and in social media platforms. And it also shows that you're being super authentic. So the more that you can really engage with those folks, continue those conversations, the better. You can also use those comments to maybe even think about other topics that you want to talk about or share. Also know where you stand within your industry. So know your role and bring in others when you're getting started if you need help establishing your credibility. It is a lot of hard work, so it's important to be prepared, stay committed, and know that this is definitely going to be a slow process in the beginning. You can't just establish yourself as a thought leader overnight. Also know who is listening to you, who isn't, and be okay with the fact that there are potential naysayers out there. Not everyone is going to appeal to every single person, and it's okay, especially on social media. There's always going to be comments that are negative or that have not necessarily constructive feedback, and that's all right. We have to just accept that and know that there is an audience out there for what we're talking about, and those are the people we want to connect with. Do your research. So again, making sure that everything you're sharing is factual, and then make sure you're as specific as possible. Avoid really broad general topics because that'll just kind of cause you to be a part of the noise. The more specific you are, the more able you are to really kind of break through and make sure that people are connecting with that content. Planning ahead is also a really good way to just make your thought leadership content more efficient for yourself. So coming up with a content calendar can help you kind of plan in advance, know exactly what you want to talk about, schedule things ahead of time, and then make sure that you have a variety of topics that you're thinking of from that 30,000-foot view. Things can always shift or change, so you do want to make sure that you're flexible, especially if something's trending and you need to hop on, talking about that. But the content calendar can be a really good jumping off point. And then also make sure you're being original. So on top of, avoiding those general topics, making sure that you are sharing things that are unique and making sure that your take on a topic is special. So always just be thinking about why should people follow you over another person, another expert in that area, and make sure that that content that you're sharing is truly original and authentic. You can do that also by offering tangible thoughts, solutions, or action items to questions that are really probing in the industry that you're in, and by avoiding being overly promotional. No one wants to follow who they feel is going to be someone that can educate them, that then turns into feeling like it's more of just a sales pitch. So a lot of people wonder why they should care, what the benefits are of truly being a thought leader, and it can impact both yourself as an individual in your own profession, and it can impact the business that you work for. So when you do thought leadership correctly, it can drive business. This is something that we actually use pretty frequently on the medical center side. We have physicians who are interested in being thought leaders, and it helps bring in additional patients. It helps them feel like they can connect with their physicians before they come in for an appointment or, even bigger, maybe a surgery. And that helps them, from the patient side, feel more calm, like they know more of what to expect. And then from our side, it helps us drive patients into the building. It can also fuel additional content for both your brand and yourself, and can have a positive reputation on your personal brand. It helps you build credibility and trust for yourself, and expands your network like we talked about earlier. It also allows you to connect with your audience on a deeper level. So, the more information that you're kind of putting out there, the time that you're spending crafting posts or blog posts, and again, engaging with your followers, that really does allow you to connect more than just kind of posting something that is fairly meaningless or very broad and not coming back to really have those conversations with your followers. And it does also drive a personal satisfaction. I think there is something to be said for knowing that you can cement your place out there online amongst, a lot of other people who are really truly trying to make things better, as well as there are people out there not necessarily using thought leadership for the most positive purposes. And so the satisfaction that you can gain from growing in that space and knowing that you are, contributing in a positive way to this type of work can definitely help, make you feel good about yourself and help you from just growing through your own professional goals as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now, just in case anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I had a question, and thank you so much. This has been really helpful and informative, and gives me a lot to consider. You mentioned that speaking opportunities, and for me,
Yes.
that's something like I've done a little bit of. I feel like I need to grow at it. So there's that barrier of like feeling like I need to be good at it before I do it, and then also not really knowing how to connect to those opportunities. So I'd love to hear anything more you'd like to share about any recommendations in that area.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say, as someone who used to have like a deathly fear of public speaking, and I still have a lot of, room for improvement for sure, but that you have to kind of do it even when you don't feel like you're necessarily the best at it, to just kind of continue to get that practice. And the more often that you do it, the more you'll be able to identify ways to kind of hone your skills. I would also suggest, if, for this presentation, for example, is recorded, I will go back and watch this to take a look at areas where I might be able to improve. So that really helps me, like being able to do that. I also feel like if there's areas within Ohio State, like I just reached out to OUAB and I was like, hey, here's some of my expertise. Is there any opportunities that you would have for me to present? So doing that within your area at Ohio State and starting small and just saying like, hey, here's kind of what my strong suits are. Are there any organizations or places where I can kind of get in front of people? And the answer may be, no, not right now, but down the line there could be. So just kind of actively seeking those things out. I would also say, if you're part of any like, other student organizations, if you have a mentor, if there's like a professor that, you work really closely with, reaching out to them and saying, hey, I really want to hone my skills in this area. Public speaking is, one thing I want to get out there and be doing more of. Do you have any suggestions? They also might be able to kind of connect you with folks that, have other opportunities outside of Ohio State. I will also say it's sort of a catch-22, but the more that I was out there kind of posting on LinkedIn about presentations that I did, or even just sharing my thoughts on social media and things happening specifically in the healthcare space, I started having people reach out to me directly through just like direct message on Instagram or on LinkedIn, sorry, asking me if I would be interested in presenting, at some upcoming event. So sometimes the thought leadership piece and the speaking engagement piece really are circular, because one can really drive the other, and like kind of do that, hand in hand. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Great. Awesome. Well, Ray, I know we're wrapped up a little early here, but I appreciate your help with getting all the technical issues fixed. Is there anything else that you would need from me before we wrap up today? All right. I'm going to take that as a no. Nancy, thanks for joining and thanks for your questions. And yeah, I'm sure this deck will get shared out, but feel free to reach out at any point as well if there's anything I can ever help with.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.